Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we're doing June's plan with me, and this month's theme is junk journaling. Well, at least that's what I'm calling it. As you can see, I have so many fun stationery items that typically don't go in my bullet journal, so I really wanted to find a way to use a big chunk of it because I love these pieces so much, but it's just hard for me to find places to put them with my everyday bullet journaling, if that makes sense. So I thought a junk journaling theme would be perfect. For those of you who don't know what junk journaling is, it's where you gather junk, otherwise known as things you would normally throw out, and paste it into your journal to document a time in your life. So we're talking wrappers, menus, invitations, cards, things like that. You can also junk journal by decorating a spread with stationery junk, meaning decorative paper, envelopes, ribbons, stickers, and such, to make any kind of spread that you want. But the fun part is that you're using the stationery junk to make it, whereas for me, a bullet journaler, I mostly use markers and pen directly on the dotted paper that's already in my journal. Bullet journalers a lot of times don't end up using stationery that will make their journals look bulky because, quite frankly, we don't have the room for it, considering we're also journaling our everyday plans. Even though both bullet journals and junk journals have the same purpose, which is documenting and keeping memories, junk journaling focuses more on the creative side, whereas bullet journaling focuses more on the structured side, if that makes sense. For this theme, I'm going to be focusing more on that stationary junk I just talked about than the junk in my everyday life. If you follow me on my socials, you'll see things here and there from my personal life as I continue on with sharing my spreads for this theme, but for today's video, we're focusing just on the stationery junk. So it was a little hard to think of what I was going to do for the title page to signify junk, but I saw this idea of a scrap quilt on Pinterest and thought that would actually be really cute. This is just me being picky, but now I feel like the downside is that this sort of sets up for more of a quilt theme when that's not actually what I'm doing. I feel like now that I've played around with this theme more, I could have thought of something different, but I at least still really like how it turned out. As you can see, I decided to just fill both pages with the paper to make a giant quilt. The paper I'm using are a bunch of little rectangle pattern pieces that I have. I got this from Amazon, and I'm not gonna lie, when I got this, I thought it was going to be much bigger, so let this be a reminder to really look at dimensions before you make a purchase. These designs are really cute, and I wanted to keep them, but I was really struggling to think of how I was going to use these small papers because there's so many of them, and this actually ended up being a perfect reason to use at least a small portion of them. Oh, wait, I forgot. There is one pile here that is not from this Amazon set. I got it at Kinokuniya, and this set is actually sticky on the back, so you can pretty much see through it after I stick it down, but I think it's fine. You can see that some designs already have multiple designs on each paper, which was really cool for this quilt idea I'm doing. It kind of felt like it did the work for me, so I made sure to use quite a bit of those patterns. But other than that, I didn't really have a rhyme or reason as to how I was placing these. I was mostly just looking at colors to make sure that there wasn't one color that was overpowering everything or similar colors too close together. I tried to hit a lot of colors because I'm not necessarily going to have a color theme for this month like I usually do. So it was really fun to just kind of go with my gut and not have a sketch beforehand. I really just got to wing it, which is very unusual for me with how I bullet journal. So I enjoyed just like having fun with it. Of course, I had some papers that were overlapping the journal page, so I had to trim that down and take my corner punch to give the journal page that rounded edge again. And then I started working on the June title. I have this random little journal from Amazon that I really like because it has sort of a yellow tint on the pages. The pages on my regular journal are just white, so I thought having this journal with that yellowish tinted paper could really add something to a future spread, and something in me really wanted to do it for this theme. I decided to break out my all capital letter stamps for the lettering because that was definitely giving junk journal vibes to me. You'll see that I actually ended up redoing these a couple of times because the imperfections were really annoying me. But once I finally got it off camera, I ripped the paper all around the edges to give it that scrappy look. And because I did one giant quilt, I decided to glue down the paper along the spine horizontally in the center, which ended up working perfectly because the letters of June can be split evenly, which is just really satisfying to me. After a bit of cleaning, I moved on to the habit tracker. I have a bunch of pattern origami paper that I got from Hello Tokyo, so I wanted to use 2 sheets of my blue polka dot papers for this spread. So I just glued that down, cut any of the overlaps, and hole punched the corners. The origami paper doesn't fit perfectly on any of my A5 pages, but I try to match it up as best as I can. Plus, I have things going over that paper break anyway, so I feel like you can't notice it too much. I'm going to do the same thing I did with the June lettering, which is stamp the word habits on my yellow tinted paper and eventually rip around the edges. But I want to give the stamp some time to dry before I do any ripping, so while we wait for that, I'm going to write out the habits I want to track. I'm doing something really different this month, which is just writing them out on a sheet of paper as opposed to making a bunch of mini calendars for me to track my habits daily. There's a few reasons why I decided to do it this way this month. One is because I honestly didn't know how I was going to fit a bunch of mini calendars on a junk journal page when I want the decorative elements to tremendously stand out. 2 was because I thought it would look cute to rip out a page from a mini notebook that I have to match with the theme, since there's a lot of ripping involved in junk journaling a lot of times. And 3 is because I honestly haven't been tracking my habits daily in my journal. I have a digital journal where I do track it daily and then eventually transfer it to my physical journal. Doing it on my digital journal is just a lot more accessible for me, so for the past many months, I have just been putting all of the trackers from my digital journal onto my physical journal. And you may ask why I would do that other than my digital journal being more accessible to me. And that's because I do still want the physical documentation. I don't trust that my digital journal will be with me until the end of time like I do with my physical journal. So it's still something that I want to physically document and look back on. Anyway, all that being said, I don't actually need a daily tracker in my physical journal because of me doing it this way. So it just works out that the stats are still going to be accurate without this inconveniencing me at all, since I'm still doing what I always do. And it also just works out better for the theme, I think. So at the end of the month, I'm just going to write out how many times I did that habit out of the 30 days. If you guys have been paying close attention to the video right now, you'll see that I am struggling to make the spread cute. I was originally just going to use as much blue as I possibly could to match the background, but then I thought it looked too blue, so I started adding yellow, and then it very quickly turned into too much for me. I honestly was super frustrated with how it ended up looking, and even took to my Instagram to ask for some advice on how to make it better. And I got some really good feedback, like balancing the blue and yellow colors out better, and having some stickers hanging off of the edge of the paper and cutting it off. So I'm keeping it this way for now, but I'm going to make some small changes in a little bit. And now that I know how possible it is to do too much quickly, I'm going to keep that in mind for the rest of my spreads. And we're doing the mood tracker next. I knew I wanted to keep at least a little bit of yellow on the habit tracker page, so I thought it would be cute to use a yellow background for the mood tracker right next to it. So I'm gluing down this yellow gingham origami paper, and of course doing the cutting I need to do so it doesn't overlap. And once again, I'm doing something really different for the mood tracker this month. It's a little overwhelming for me to think about all the things I could do with stationery junk to track my mood, so I sort of ended up going the opposite route and making it really simple. Again, I want more of the decorative elements to stand out as opposed to the actual tracking and journaling I'm going to do. So I made and cut out 3 separate line charts with 10 days per chart with 4 smiley faces to track my mood. I stamped the word mood and this time ripped out each individual letter, which by the way is a lot trickier than you would think. And I ripped them individually because my 3 charts were actually a tight squeeze, and I knew I wouldn't be able to put the title at the top like I did for the habit tracker. So you'll see me kind of playing around with the placement of the charts and the letters before I settled on gluing down the charts on the left side of the page and putting the word mood vertically on the right side. I was afraid I'd have to put MO on one side of the charts and OD on the other side, so I didn't add an S at the end like I usually do, because you know me and my even lettering, I didn't want to see 2 letters on one side and 3 on the other. But now that I finalized the format, I realized I could add an S, so I went ahead and did that. I was traumatized by my too much gene on the habit tracker, so I was trying really hard to keep it more subtle on the mood tracker with the decorative elements. I mostly focused on the decorative elements being yellow for this spread, but some of them do have the slightest tinge of blue, which of course went really well with the blue habit tracker next to it. And I do really like how this page turned out, so I think I'm finally getting the hang of junk journaling. This is not easy, by the way. You've probably noticed I'm keeping a lot of the planning included in this video because I think that's a big part of junk journaling, I'm discovering. There's a lot of trusting the process happening, and there's also a lot of garbage. Not junk, garbage. My desk is just a mess right now because of all the stationery that I brought out for this theme. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that there's just a lot of effort involved in this. I've always loved my junk journalers, but I definitely have a newfound respect for them. Okay, so going back to the habit tracker, I ultimately just decided to remove a lot more of the yellowish stickers. Since I only have hints of blue on the mood tracker, I think it makes sense to just keep my 2 yellow stickers on the habit tracker for that tiny hint of yellow to balance everything out. I still am not obsessed with how it turned out, but I do like it a lot better than it was. Next is my gratitude spread. This one is a little tricky because I do need the 30 lines for me to write one thing that I'm grateful for every day this month, but I knew I'd still have enough room to do my stamp lettering header and have fun decorative paper as the border. So I ripped out a blank page from a larger notebook that I got from Archer and Olive and cut it down so that it would just have the 30 lines. I wasn't quite sure which paper I want to go with, but I did know what paper I wanted for the page next to it. So I went through my collection to see what paper I thought could match well with that, since it'll be right next to it. And I went with this pink, blue, and brown vertical stripe design. So yeah, you guys know the drill by now. I stamped out gratitude, glued down my origami paper, cut off the excess paper of the origami paper, and then just hole punched the corners. I numbered 1 through 30 on my blank sheet that I cut out and rounded out the edges with my corner punch, and then just glued down the gratitude header after ripping around the edges like I've been doing with all the headers. As for the decorating, I again was very careful to not let my too much gene come out and just tried to find stickers that had brown, pink, or blue in them. I was so excited to finally have this opportunity to finally use this adorable pig eating ice cream. I thought she was perfect right there. And then I just put a few more star stickers around the blank sheet to finish it off. My last spread I'm going to be making is a quote page. I see envelopes used in junk journals a lot, so I really wanted to use one, but I don't have an envelope small enough to fit in my journal, so I just decided to make my own. Of course, I wanted the envelope to be a fun color, and unfortunately, I only have cardstock available in fun colors, so this paperweight was not the most ideal with making an envelope, but it worked well enough to get the job done. There's just a little more creasing that's noticeable. I didn't want to use one of my pattern papers because I already knew I wanted to use this deep purple heart paper and I didn't want the patterns to clash. So yeah, I just looked up a tutorial on how to make your own envelopes and it was super easy. I went ahead and did my usual gluing down the origami paper and cutting off the excess. Then I went back to my mini notebook that I used for the habit tracker to rip out another page that I can put in this envelope. And I wanted this paper to be loose in the envelope so it can be a little more interactive. A lot of people make super cool interactive pages in their junk journal, which I'm hoping to explore more this month as well. But for now, I'm keeping it simple with the interaction being that I am putting paper that can move in an envelope. And I'm just writing the quote, saving memories one page at a time. Like I said in the beginning of this video, bullet journalers and junk journalers share the same purpose with this creative hobby, which is creating a space to document our lives. So I thought this would be a cute quote to really tie the two together. I put this cute little bunny sticker at the bottom of the message and just trimmed down the paper so that it was a little more centered and fit in the envelope better. Then I just glued down the envelope and kept the paper loose. And lastly, just added on a few star stickers as well as some washi tape. I think this spread turned out super cute and is already pretty loud, so it didn't need a bunch of stickers. So I kept it as is, very simple, and I love it. Here's the final flip through of June's junk journaling theme. I had so much fun making these spreads. I love that this theme challenged me to tap into a different side of my creativity, and I'm so excited to continue with that this month. But thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!